The world felt old. Beyond the wall, White Walkers returned. In the Seven Kingdoms, men played their own games, blind to the danger. King Robert Baratheon sat on the Iron Throne. The great houses watched each other with suspicion. In Winterfell, Lord Eddard Stark lived by honor. A raven brought dark news. Jon Arryn was dead. King Robert rode north asking Ned to be his new hand. A secret letter claimed Jon Arryn was murdered by the Lannisters. Ned left Winterfell for King's Landing, stepping into a web of lies. The Game of Thrones had begun. Winter was coming, and with it, the end of the old world. The Starks of Winterfell, honor-bound, vigilant, and unprepared for southern treachery, stood as the realm's moral compass. Ned Stark's children each embodied a piece of the North, Robb the heir, Sansa the dreamer, Arya the rebel, Bran the explorer, and Jon Snow the outsider. Their unity would soon be tested by the duplicity of the South. In contrast, the Lannisters of Casterly Rock were driven by power and wealth. Tywin Lannister ruled with ruthless calculation. Cersei the queen was ambitious and fiercely protective of her children and her twin brother Jaime, the infamous Kingslayer. Tyrion, the sharp-witted dwarf, navigated their world with intellect and sarcasm, despised by his own family. Across the narrow sea, the last Targaryens, Viserys and Daenerys, lived in exile, their dynasty destroyed, their dragons extinct. Viserys, consumed by entitlement and rage, saw Daenerys as a tool to reclaim his throne. Daenerys, timid and controlled, was about to discover her own strength. The motivations of these houses set the stage for conflict: Starks for honor, Lannisters for power, Targaryens for restoration. Each family's desires were a powder keg, waiting for a spark. The Starks sought justice for Jon Arryn's death. The Lannisters would do anything to protect their secrets. The Targaryens dreamed of fire and blood. These rivalries would ignite a war that would consume the realm. In Westeros, family was everything and everything was at stake. The game was not just for the throne, but for survival itself. The world was changing, and only the ruthless would endure. The powder keg was about to explode. Ned Stark entered King's Landing, a city of shadows and secrets, accompanied by Sansa and Arya. Sansa dreamed of royal life. Blind to its dangers, Arya chafed against its constraints. As Hand, Ned faced a council of schemers and a city where truth was a weapon. He quietly investigated Jon Arryn's death, following a trail of dangerous questions about the royal children's lineage. A dusty book of lineages revealed a secret: Robert's children were not his, but the products of Cersei and Jaime's incest. Peter Littlefinger Baelish, the manipulative master of coin, offered guidance but played his own game, thriving on chaos. Ned's blunt honesty made him enemies in a city built on lies. The truth he uncovered was a death sentence. The Queen's children had no claim to the throne. Every move Ned made drew him deeper into a deadly trap. The fate of the kingdom now rested on his choices. In King's Landing, honor was a liability. Ned Stark was a wolf among vipers, and the walls were closing in. The game was deadlier than he ever imagined. Far to the east, Daenerys Targaryen's fate changed with a forced marriage to Khal Drogo, arranged by her brother Viserys. Terrified and powerless, Daenerys was treated as property, but slowly adapted to Dothraki life. Guided by her handmaidens and Ser Jorah Mormont, she learned the language and customs, finding her own strength. Drogo began to respect her, and a true partnership formed. Her wedding gifts included 3 petrified dragon eggs, symbols of her lost heritage and a dormant power. As Daenerys grew in confidence, she felt a strange connection to the eggs, hinting at magic in her blood. The turning point came when Viserys threatened her and her unborn child. Drogo executed him with molten gold, ending his claim and freeing Daenerys from his shadow. "He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon," she declared. Daenerys emerged as a true Khaleesi, no longer a pawn but a leader. Her compassion and strength won her the loyalty of her people. The dragon eggs were a promise of a future she could not yet see. In the east, a new power was awakening. Daenerys was no longer just the last Targaryen. She was the mother of dragons in waiting. The world would soon remember the power of fire. King's Landing thrived on secrets. Information was power. and no one wielded it better than Lord Varys the Spider. His network of spies made him the city's true puppet master, serving the realm, or so he claimed. The small council was a nest of rivalries. Pycelle, a Lannister loyalist, Littlefinger, a chaos-loving schemer, Renly, charming but ambitious. Ned Stark, with his rigid honor, was out of his depth. The crown's debts to the Lannisters gave them dangerous leverage. Littlefinger manipulated the kingdom's finances, turning every crisis to his advantage. In King's Landing, every word was a weapon, every gesture a trap. Ned's honesty made him vulnerable in a city where truth was just another tool. The tourney held in Ned's honor was a spectacle of violence and politics, a stage for alliances and rivalries. Sir Gregor Clegane's brutality revealed the Lannisters' ruthlessness. Littlefinger whispered in Ned's ear, feeding him information and suspicion. Beneath the pageantry, the real game was played in shadows. In King's Landing, beauty masked danger, and the stakes were life and death. Ned was surrounded by enemies, and the city's web was tightening. The game was never fair, and Ned was running out of time. The Stark-Lannister feud erupted from simmering tension to open war. On the King's Road, Joffrey's cruelty led to the death of Sansa's direwolf, Lady, a brutal lesson in southern injustice. Bran's fall and a failed assassination attempt deepened the rift. Catelyn, convinced of Lannister guilt, seized Tyrion Lannister. Littlefinger's lies fueled the fire, turning suspicion into war. Tyrion's trial by combat at the Eyrie secured his freedom, but the damage was done. Tywin Lannister unleashed his forces, ravaging the Riverlands in retaliation. Ned condemned Tywin and sent men to bring the Mountain to justice. The political games ended, the swords came out, the wolf and the lion were at war, and the realm would bleed. Every move now had deadly consequences. The Seven Kingdoms teetered on the edge of chaos. The feud had become a wildfire. War was inevitable. In the east, Daenerys' compassion and strength set her apart. But mercy brought tragedy. Drogo was wounded, saving innocents. Blood magic cost Daenerys her child and left Drogo a shell. Betrayed and abandoned, she was left with only her dragon eggs and a handful of loyal followers. In Westeros, Robb Stark rose as a leader after Ned's imprisonment. He called the banners, marched south, and captured Jaime Lannister in a stunning victory. Robb's triumph made him more than a son. He became the young wolf, a commander in his own right. With Ned's execution, the North's lords refused to bow to southern kings. Robb was declared king in the north, seceding from the Seven Kingdoms. A new kingdom was born from grief and rebellion. The war for the throne grew more complex. Two new leaders had risen from loss, one in the east, one in the north. The old order was breaking. The world was changing. After King Robert's death, Ned Stark tried to reveal the truth and install Stannis as king. He trusted Littlefinger to secure the city watch. A fatal mistake. Ned confronted Cersei, offering mercy, but she had already seized power. When Ned moved to arrest her, the city watch turned on him. Littlefinger betrayed him. "I did warn you not to trust me." Ned was arrested for treason, imprisoned beneath the Red Keep. Varys urged him to confess and accept exile to the Night's Watch, promising safety for his daughters. For his family's sake, Ned agreed to a false confession. At the Great Sept of Baelor, Ned confessed before the crowd, expecting mercy. Joffrey, drunk on power, ignored all pleas and ordered Ned's execution. Sansa watched in horror. Arya hid in the crowd. The hero was beheaded, and the world went black. Honor had no place in the Game of Thrones. The consequences would shake the realm. The game had claimed its first great casualty. Nothing would ever be the same. Ned Stark's execution shattered the Seven Kingdoms and the illusion that honor could survive. Robb's war for justice became a war for independence. The North broke away. The Lannisters held King's Landing, but Joffrey's cruelty made their rule fragile. Tyrion was sent to control the Boy King and the chaos. Stannis and Renly Baratheon both claimed the throne, plunging the realm into the War of the Five Kings. The Stark children were scattered. Sansa a hostage, Arya fleeing, Bran and Rickon left to rule Winterfell, Jon torn at the wall. The world was forever changed. In the east, Daenerys built a funeral pyre for Drogo, placing her dragon eggs in the flames. She walked into the fire and emerged unburnt with 3 living dragons. Magic returned to the world and a new power was born. The Game of Thrones was no longer just about men and crowns. Fire and blood had returned. The world would never be the same. The game had changed forever.